Good morning. We call this third meeting of the House Budget Review and Subcommittee on Primary and Secondary Education and Workforce Development to order. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Bojanowski,
Here.
Representative Bowling, Representative Kleins,
Here.
Representative Bray, Representative Petrie, Representative Lewis, here. Chair Banton.
Okay, here. We do not have a quorum, so we're going to start with our career and technical education. We have two items on the agenda today related to the additional budget requests. First on the agenda, we have Dr. Hargis and Dr. Graves from Kentucky Department of Education to speak on career and technical education. Please come up front. Go ahead and identify yourselves. Make sure your mics are on.
Good morning. Lauren Graves, Policy Advisor, KDE Office of Career and Technical Education.
Good morning. Beth Hargis, Associate Commissioner, Kentucky Department of Education over the Office of Career and Technical Education.
Good morning. Beth Engel, Division Director with the Office of Career and Technical Education in the Kentucky Department of Education.
Thank you. When you're ready, go ahead.
All right. Good morning, committee members, and thank you for the opportunity to provide an overview of the funding formula as a result of the amendments in House Bill 499 from the 2024 legislative session. We'll also be discussing the budget bill, House Bill 6 from the 24 legislative session, and how it relates to the funding formula for career and technical education. For a quick overview, Area Technology Centers, or ATCs as they are commonly referred to, are state-operated career and technical education centers that were strategically placed across Kentucky to provide additional access to career and technical education opportunities. ATCs provide support to local districts and to as many students as possible without placing additional financial burdens on local school districts. They were also specifically created in response to economic disparities in Appalachian and rural areas. ATCs offer programs that provide specialized training in fields such as healthcare, manufacturing, automotive technology, construction, computer science, and more. The aim is to equip students with the practical skills needed for in-demand jobs in the workforce. This ABR for your consideration includes $14,789,352 in both fiscal year 27 and 28. This funding would allow ATCs to be included in the funding formula while reducing funding disparities and holding local districts that provide career and technical education harmless. House Bill 499 from the 24 legislative session created a funding formula for distribution of the $70,063,400 to both local CTE centers and area technology centers. The formula includes 60% of the funding for weighted full-time equivalent and 40% for incentives. Students can earn up to 4 incentives. That includes concentrator status, which is completing 2 courses out of the 4-course sequence, CTE dual credit, technical skills including industry certification or end-of-program assessment for articulated credit, and work-based learning including co-ops, internships, and apprenticeships. While House Bill 499 included the state-operated area technology centers in the funding formula, it's important to discuss the CTE budget language in House Bill 6 from the 24 session. HB 6 included notwithstanding language that excluded the ATCs. Specifically, HB 6 stated, notwithstanding KRS 157.069 of this amount, $70,063,400 in each fiscal year shall be distributed as supplemental funding to local area vocational education centers. With this information in mind, I will turn it over to Dr. Hargis to explain the current funding formula for CTE.
Good morning, and thank you again for the opportunity. This slide shows the current funding allocation of the $70 million to local districts, with 60% being allocated on a weighted full-time equivalent enrollment, and as illustrated on the left-hand side of your slide. And then 40% is based on those high-quality incentives, which is illustrated on the right-hand side. So as you can see, and I know there's a lot of numbers here and boxes, but as you can see on the left-hand side, the third box down, shows the calculation amount for the statewide value of each of the local districts' weighted FTEs, and that number is $1,320.29. And then likewise, on the right-hand side of the slide, the fourth box down shows the calculation and amount for the statewide per incentive value of each local district's high-quality incentives that students can attain. And that number is $455.93. And it's important to note that students can earn up to 4 incentives. So I ask you to please keep these numbers in mind as we progress through the slides. And remember, this chart only applies to the local CTE program, and for the current fiscal year, 160 local districts were funded with this. All right, so when we've presented on this topic in the past, a couple of questions were asked about return on investment, and we know that that's critical, so we want to take a moment to briefly go over what we've been able to do with the additional CTE funds that were provided in the 22 session. So as you can see, we are growing in each career readiness measure and really anticipate continued growth. The number of students earning dual credit has grown by 35%, and work-based learning, which includes that cooperative learning activity and apprenticeships, has grown by 1,782. And since the 2023 school year, that equates to an increase of 82%, which we are very proud of. KY Stats data shows that students who participate in work-based learning activities and opportunities are much more likely to be employed and earn higher wages than those students who do not participate. And so that is actually, and that's just 1 year out of high school. And so this is based on students that graduated in 2022. So while we've made significant progress with the current funding, and I feel like we've demonstrated a pretty strong return on investment, including the ATCs in the funding model would continue to increase the ROI and truly eliminate the existing funding discrepancies. This slide highlights the funding inequities that currently exist between local districts and the ATCs. So as Dr. Graves mentioned, in 2024, House Bill 6 budget language excluded the ATCs from the supplemental CTE funding and the related calculations. And as a result, the ATC allocations are based solely on the weighted FTEs without access to the incentive funding. And so remember those numbers I referenced in slide 4. A student in an ATC generates a weighted FTE value for this current fiscal year of $549.66, which is shown on that bottom row of the middle column. And when you can make the comparison then, because right above that is the weighted FTE value for a student that is in a locally operated comprehensive high school or center of the $1,320.29. Likewise, very important to remember, students in local districts may earn up to 4 incentives. So again, notice the per incentive value shown in the right column, $455.93. So when we multiply that by 4 incentives, that equates to a student being able to generate $1,823.72 on incentives alone. And overall, a student from a local district, when you consider the weighted FTE value and that potential incentive value, that student could generate as much as $3,144.01 per student when they're all combined together. And again, when compared to the $549.66, which is the only thing that ATC student can generate for funding, we've got a pretty big discrepancy there. The current House Bill 500 budget language also excludes the ATCs from the funding and the calculations. And so for this reason, we respectfully request your recommendation to approve this ABR and support revisions to House Bill 500, which would remove that notwithstanding language. And so we firmly believe that these actions would level the playing field for all students, regardless of where that instruction is provided.
So we want to show you the map where the 50 ATCs are located. Out of Kentucky's 171 districts, ATCs serve students from 117 districts, which is about 68% of the Kentucky school districts. As noted earlier, area technology centers were strategically located throughout Kentucky to ensure that all secondary students have access to career and technical education. Many ATCs are situated in locations that allow them to serve multiple schools or districts, particularly in areas where students might otherwise lack access to highly specialized career and technical instruction. The ATC structure promotes cost saving and shared resources, with many serving multiple feeder districts in schools, making it more feasible for all of Kentucky's high school students to have CTE pathway opportunities. And we are happy to take any questions that you all may have.
Chairman Lewis?
Thank you all for the presentation. And this bill, when it was presented, I think in 24, I can't remember when we went to the new formula. I asked some of these questions that I'm going to ask now, and I was told at that time the new formula wouldn't hurt the ATCs. In my mind, I pretty much knew it would. And so I guess my question is, so are we going to have to come back every time during budget session and ask for more money, or are you saying that it's going to be fixed so that we don't have to keep doing that? Because if you'll remember, when we come back the very next session, we were short $14 million for the ATCs, which, I guess that's my question. Is there some way to fix it in a new House bill, or are you saying fix it in budget language, but it needs to be fixed so it doesn't have to happen every time we do a budget?
Thank you for that. And now I'm trying to think back and remember, but I believe that when we testified for the 499, at that time we thought the ATCs would be included and that the notwithstanding language would be in the budget language. So we still stand firm with that. That if all we need to do, we don't believe that there's anything wrong with 157.069 as it stands.
Okay.
With the funding calculation and the incentives. The ATCs would be fine under that, but we need that notwithstanding language removed from the budget bill in order for us to be able to calculate it like that. Now, with that said too, when this was first put into place in 24, the local districts got used to the 70 million without the ATCs in there. And so that's why we're asking for this additional budget request, so that we don't want to penalize the local districts. And so this would hold harmless. And then from my perspective, I think we're fine. I don't see us coming back next year and asking for any other changes. I think it would fix it, and I do think it was simply because when we testified, we thought that the ATCs would be included, and of course then the House Bill 6 budget language excluded them.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Representative Kleins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to use the word stagnation here. If we don't remove this clause, I think we miss out on a lot of potential. Yes. So obviously you're growing with your percentages, 35% and 82%. So I think we need to do our part to make sure that you continue to grow. So thank you for presenting today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next up, we have PreK for all. And if we could have Sam Flynn and Nick Terrell, please come up and introduce yourselves. You're not going to read that to us, are you?
Every word, Representative, every word. Oh, thank you so much, Chair Banta, Chair Lewis, Representative Bojanowski, Representative Kleins. My name is Sam Flynn. I'm Executive Director for the PreK for All initiative. And with me here today is Nick Therrell.
Nick Therrell, Policy Advisor.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much for having us today. I believe we've got a presentation that will right. Believe the presentation's on your screen. So Pre-K for All is about expanding preschool access in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Kentucky's had a preschool program since 1990. We've funded it in every single budget since 1990, and since 2019, we've funded it about $84 million per year. Now, what does that $84 million do? That funds about 14,200 kids, about half of which have serious disabilities, so speech disabilities and things of that nature, and half goes to support kids who are from families who have incomes below 160% of the federal poverty line. Now, our pre-K program wasn't always providing access to kids at 160% of the federal poverty line and below, so sort of families on the poor end of the socioeconomic spectrum. It started at 130%. So we have expanded preschool access in Kentucky before. We've done so under Republican governors. We've done so under Democratic governors. Started in 2007. Under Governor Fletcher, we moved that eligibility up to 150% of the federal poverty line, and that has happened again as well. Now, this body also went to 200% of the federal poverty line, which is higher than it currently is, but that was line item vetoed in the 2016-2018 budget by then Governor Bevin. But even Governor Bevin said that this was a laudable goal to expand preschool access. And the reason why is because it improves kindergarten readiness. It provides parents an opportunity to take their kids to somewhere that is a safe environment, that is an educational environment, to help those kids, prepare those kids for the educational career that they're going to have from K all the way through 12 and beyond. And we've seen that here in Kentucky, and we've seen that other places as well. So why expand preschool access in Kentucky? Well, what we know is that early childhood education is delivered in a number of ways here. We have Head Start, which is for families that are 100% of the federal poverty line or below. We have public pre-K. We have CCAP, which is federally subsidized child care. Then we have a big gap. Whole bunch of families, working families, that are either not sending their kids to child care because they can't find it or because they can't afford it. And then we have families who are private pay families that are paying upwards of 13% on average of their take-home pay on child care in Kentucky. Now, I have this large packet of information here, and I just want to point out that the Office of Education Accountability has studied this. So the legislature, the LRC, has studied this. And in that document, what they tell us is that the kids that are in no formal setting perform worse on kindergarten readiness assessments than kids that are in Head Start, than kids that are in public pre-K, than kids that are in private or nonprofit child care centers. So these are the kids that are staying home with grandma or grandpa or going to some informal child care setting. And the reason why is fairly clear. If you speak to educators, and I know I'm speaking to several educators, kids that are in public pre-K or that are in child care or that are in Head Start, they're going to a place that's safe, that is an educational environment. They have an adult in the room. There are rules that they're following. They're learning how to do the basics of, in some cases, even potty training, to say nothing of the actual educational curriculums that they may be. And we're not talking about very complicated educational curriculums. We're talking about learning colors, learning numbers, learning how to make sounds and rhyme, and learn through play. So very, very simple things, but that really get kids on the right path. And if you talk to educators either in this body or out throughout the state, what we've continued to hear is that kids that come from those settings where they're not in a formal setting, that it takes anywhere between 6 weeks and 6 months in some cases to get these kids up to speed and at the same level as the kids that were in public pre-K or the kids that were in private child care or nonprofit child care. So we have made a budget request to expand preschool access. That would cover about 9,600 additional kids at a cost of $40 million in year two. So $40 million above the $84 million that are normally appropriated. Now, we have done this in a way that is, we believe, phased and responsible, allowing districts to lead this process. So the first year, as you can see on your screen, is a planning year. School districts would be able to set out their plans for how they address facilities needs, staffing needs, transportation needs, and most importantly, when they can actually implement. So this plan gives school districts a runway for implementation, right? So this is not, hey, here's funds, go do this thing right away. This is, tell us when you can actually make this happen. And we work with superintendents, and there's a reason why the Kentucky Association of School Superintendents has endorsed this plan, is because it is done in a phased and responsible way. Now, what you see is in year 2 would be the first year of implementation. So for those school districts, and there will be several who are ready to go, right? Some only need one classroom. Right, that raise their hand and say, we're ready to expand, we can do this in 2028. Those, they can apply for funding from KDE under this program and expand preschool access in their district. Others may say, well, we're not going to be ready in 28, we might be ready in 2030, and that's perfectly fine. One other thing that we're doing in this plan is building in regulatory flexibility. So right now, to have a preschool classroom, you have to have a bathroom attached. Well, if there's one right across the hallway, right, that classroom is no longer conforming. We want to allow school districts to have the regulatory flexibility to apply for a waiver to make sure that that classroom is conforming, because the most important thing is getting kids to the classroom. We've seen it in the kindergarten readiness data here in Kentucky, but we've also seen it in other parts of the country. So we put together an advisory committee back in June made up of folks from business, from education, from childcare, from the nonprofit sector. And we looked at not just how we're providing early childhood education in Kentucky, but how it's being provided nationally, how it's being provided in other states that look a lot like us, right? Demographically, geographically, states like Alabama, states like Oklahoma, states like West Virginia, and how they do this. So first piece there is providing regulatory flexibility. Second piece is allowing private child care providers and nonprofits to participate in this program, allowing them to work together in partnership with school districts to provide some of these services. So that's built into this plan as well, because we know that our child care providers do very well in terms of getting kids ready for kindergarten, for the most part here in our state, and we want to encourage that to continue, and we want to encourage families being able to make that choice if they're in an area that has a sufficient amount of child care available for those partnerships to exist. Now, some folks will say, well, why can't we do this all through child care throughout our state, right? Why not expand the CCAP eligibility, right? Well, the reason for that is because we don't have child care in many parts of our state. And I've got a document here. This is the Child Care Aware Report. It's the child care landscape in Kentucky. Now, if you look in here, and it has every single county in Kentucky, and I encourage you to look in here. If you look at counties like Robertson County, there's not a single child care provider in Robertson County. In Todd County, there are 900 kids under the age of 5 and only 100 child care seats available. Right? We have child care deserts in Kentucky. Our school districts are the oases in those child care deserts. We have the infrastructure there. We're already providing preschool services in those communities. We can expand those using the existing infrastructure that we have with the regulatory flexibility that we're building into this program and with the runway and the trajectory that we believe is necessary for school districts to have the time to plan. Now, what does this look like in terms of dollars and cents? So for the and I'm going to talk about families first. So for a family under 160% of the federal poverty line, that's a single mom making about $17 an hour. Her child doesn't qualify. For a family of 4, it's $50,000 a year. There's multiple ways to expand preschool access. This budget proposal has it going to 250% of the federal poverty line. Now, that would move that line from a family of 4 making $50,000 a year not qualifying to right around $80,000 a year. So truly focusing in on working families in Kentucky. We believe that this is a way that we can truly get a lot of those kids that are in no formal setting currently, because they either live in one of those areas of the state where there's no child care, or their family can't afford to spend $10,000 a year on child care, into a setting, into an early learning environment where they can become kindergarten ready. We have seen this work in red states and in blue states, states like Alabama, who, by the way, they didn't have a preschool program until 2000, 10 years after we launched ours. They have now surpassed us in the number of kids that they serve. So this is something that is happening in other parts of the country. They are benefiting in terms of the educational output and kids being kindergarten ready. We've seen it in Alabama in particular, and we had the program director come and speak to us. And she said it's not just the educational benefits that they saw. Kids were less likely to be absent from school, and they're also less likely to have disciplinary issues K through 12. So this benefits kids not just in education, but also throughout their academic careers. In places like Des Moines, Iowa, we saw in 6th grade, they did better in math and in English. We saw in Boston, kids were more likely to graduate high school. We saw in Oklahoma, they were more likely to attend college. And when I say that, 12 percentage points more likely to attend college. So we've seen this work in other places. So that's what it looks like in terms of the actual expansion for families here in Kentucky. Now I want to talk a little bit about the budget and what that looks like. So we allocate about $4,000 per year per child for that at-risk population. So when I say at-risk population, think about kids that are under that 250% of the federal poverty line, currently 160% of the federal poverty line. We spend about $4,000 and change per year making sure that they can go to preschool. Expanding preschool access to 250%, that's about 9,600 additional kids. That's from KY Stats. And that would be about $40 million in change in year 2. Now, what we know is that not every school district will be ready to go in year 2, so not all of those funds will be expended. And this is a voluntary program. Families can opt to be part of it or opt not to. And so we think about 55 to 65%, and this is based on other areas in the country and other states in the country, as well as our own program. About 55 to 65% of families will choose to send their child to public pre-K if it's an option. So again, focusing in on working class families and making sure that those kids have an opportunity. We think that this is a great opportunity to expand preschool access. It's going to have incredible downstream impacts educationally. It's also going to give parents an opportunity to return to work, which is such an important thing with so many businesses choosing to come to Kentucky because of decisions that are made right here. So many businesses are choosing to come to Kentucky, and the first thing they ask is, well, how are we going to fill those seats? We have Kentuckians that are ready to go back to work, but for access to childcare. Chamber report says that's somewhere between 40 and 70,000 people. The Trump administration said that was somewhere between 10 and 11 million people in 2019 nationwide would return to work, but for access to childcare. Providing parents an opportunity to take their kids to an educational setting and then go to work is going to benefit these families. We saw upwards of 21% increase in their take-home pay. Even if parents are going back part-time, that's a boon to their bottom line in their family and their family budgets. So this is our budget request, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Okay, I think we have some questions. Representative Bray.
Thank you. You keep talking about pre-K as childcare. Pre-K is not childcare. The school system is not childcare. My kids have been out of school for 9 days now. Guess what? My wife's had to go to work. All of my wife's coworkers have had to go to work. They've got to work during the summer. They've got to work on holidays. It's not a replacement for childcare. It shouldn't be even talked about as a replacement for childcare because they're not compatible at all. Now, having got my rant out of the way, do you all have any kind of data that shows how many additional classrooms, how many additional teachers, additional school buildings, new school buildings, what the cost of any of that would be long term?
So I think there's a couple questions in there, and I think your first question is about facilities. Is that right? So I understand it? Okay. So a couple benefits to our plan is that it allows school districts a runway to actually implement. So if a school district says in their first year, if you want to go back to the first year of implementation is 2028, not 2027. 2027 or 2026, 2027 is the year which districts would do planning. So they would tell you and KDE, you being the General Assembly and KDE, what their needs are in terms of facilities. So have they identified any facilities, say in Rockcastle County? Have they identified any facilities where they have additional classroom spaces? How many additional kids would they actually be serving at 250% of the federal poverty line? How many additional teachers would they actually need to cover those? In some cases, we've seen where it's only about 20 to 30 additional kids. It might be one to two classrooms in many of these communities. So there's not a huge need for new facilities. In a lot of parts of the states where we actually have declining classrooms, where school districts have more facilities opening up. And I also want to touch again on the regulatory flexibility that we're building in here so that school districts actually can apply for regulatory waivers. So, and we discussed this with Representative Bowling, I think about a month ago, where school districts would actually have the ability to apply for a regulatory waiver. So right now, a school district is required to have a classroom with a bathroom attached to it. There's not a whole lot of conforming spaces available out there, but if there's a bathroom right across the hallway, we want the school district to be able to make the choice to apply for a regulatory waiver, and then there's a lot more facilities that are available to provide for those one or two more classrooms. And again, I want to reemphasize, there is a multiple year runway for school districts to say, look, 5-6 years from now, we're ready to go, or 3 years from now. We've had many districts tell us, we'll be ready in year 2. You pass it, we're ready in year 2. We've had other ones that say, well, more like 2030. Maybe 2031. So this provides flexibility. It really lets districts lead this process. And I want to go back and touch on the comment that was made earlier. This is about kindergarten readiness. There is a significant portion of our population, about 20,000, we have 54,000 4-year-olds, 20,000 of them are in no formal setting. And again, this report from the legislature, not mine, the legislature, says that those kids do worse on kindergarten readiness, full stop, compared to kids that are in childcare, compared to kids that are in Head Start, compared to kids that are in public PreK. Getting those kids the opportunity, because this is a voluntary program, to go to one of those educational environments is going to drastically improve our kindergarten readiness. Those kids that are currently served, their families are at 160% of the federal poverty line. That's a single mom making $34,000 a year or less. Her kids are doing better than kids that are in working families making significantly more money that have either no access to childcare or they can't afford it because they're stuck in the middle. So getting those kids an opportunity to go to that educational environment is going to drastically, and we've seen it in red states and blue states, Alabama, Oklahoma, the data speaks for itself. They saw drastic impacts and positive impacts on kindergarten readiness.
Even with the runway, at some point in time, if we expand the number of kids in school, there will come budget requests to build new buildings, to build additional classrooms for additional staffing. Do you all have any idea or any kind of data on what we may be looking like in 2030, 2031, whatever your long runway is, so that we can plan for that into the future?
So I can't speak to all 171 districts. What I can tell you is that the districts, many districts out there are already offering PreK to every child that will, essentially every child that is that is in their county or community or district. And they're doing that, and they're eating out of other parts of their budget to do so. So a lot of them are already covering these kids, probably 40%. Okay, the remainder of those districts are not. And again, I can't speak to every single one of them. What I can tell you is that many have already identified classroom space available. I will tell you that in 2027, 2028 fiscal year, we've already had a significant number say we can do this right now.
What about staffing?
So that's a great question. So in terms of staffing, we will need additional teachers. Obviously, if you have more classrooms and you're serving more kids, you're going to need additional teachers. There's a couple things here. First, again, the runway. Very important to consider because it spreads out the hiring needs for all the school districts in the state. The second piece is we've identified some regulatory challenges that teachers currently face. So the first things first is that in Kentucky, you can teach you can teach up if you're a preschool teacher, but you can't teach down if you're K through 5. We want to look at some regulatory flexibility there and working with EPSB on reducing that regulatory barrier and helping get more teachers. There's a lot of people that want to teach in the preschool setting. There really are. And getting them the opportunity to do so if they change communities or move or they just choose to teach at the earlier age bracket, we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to do so. We also want to look at building out the pipeline for teachers here in the Commonwealth, particularly at that early childhood education age. Now, I do want to talk about two other pieces that play into this. First, just looking at the data from other states. So in Alabama, what they saw is sort of if you build it, they will come. So right now we're only serving 25% of the kids. That's significantly less job opportunity at that level than you see at first grade, where you're educating all of the kids. So obviously, if there's less job opportunity in one place, people are going to go to another place for more job opportunity. So that's one piece that's impacting this, and I think very, very important to consider as we move forward.
Representative Bray. Representative Lewis.
Just a couple comments, probably, and you know, as education chair, I've dealt with this quite a bit, and during my career, I've dealt with this quite a bit. I do think one thing's come out of this discussion. The poverty rate needs to be increased. With today's money, anyway, we're at 160%. Even if we went to 200%, I think that's about 5,500 kids maybe. Very affordable. And I also would get those next group that we talk about the parents that can't afford to send their kids to daycare and don't qualify for preschool. So, you know, if nothing else, if we could just look at raising the poverty rate, and that would be a good start, and that would, I don't think there'd be any districts with that amount of students spread statewide would have to, building issues or anything of that nature. And at least we would capture that next group of kids, that those parents are the ones that really need it. So it's more of a comment than anything else, but I think that would be a first start, along with some child care activities or bills that we're doing also this session. So that wouldn't overwhelm anyone. I think the parents in that income bracket would truly appreciate it. And again, it's that 30%. If your kid's going to daycare, they come in kindergarten and test kindergarten ready pretty good. Yeah. The ones going to preschool, they test a little lower, but we got to remember that's the kids with the disability and low income. So we need the kids that aren't getting anything, and that's the group that we need to focus on right now. And I think some of those will be in this group. So that's more of a comment than anything else, but thank you.
I appreciate that comment, Chairman Lewis, and I just want to remind that you know, this body has gone to 200% before. I think it was 98-1, and I think 38-0. In 2016 to go to 200% of the federal poverty line. It would serve about 5,500 additional kids. Representative Bray, I know the concern that you have focuses on the facilities needs and certainly on the staffing needs. I think very important concerns. Obviously, that significantly reduces those concerns, but it is a meaningful step towards expanding preschool access in Kentucky and serves a lot of working families. I do want to mention one piece that we did not get to, and this is the pay for this. We have identified sports wagering funds. There's about $115 to $120 million sitting in an account that comes from sports wagering revenues here in the Commonwealth. About $40 million goes into that account each year, estimated to continue about that same rate. So this program would require no new general fund appropriation, only from this dedicated revenue stream moving forward, and we believe that this is sufficient to cover the cost of this program well into the future.
Okay, thank you. Representative Bray?
Yep.
So is it your all's opinion that we need to take money out of the permanent pension fund
So
to fund this program?
I appreciate the question. So the name of the fund, so about 85% of our sports wagering dollars goes into what is called the Permanent Pension Fund. But it's not actually allocated to any pension program currently. So it's not actually funding any current pension liability. So those monies essentially sit in an account and have not been allocated towards any purpose. We believe this is a meritorious purpose that is going to serve a lot of Kentucky 4-year-olds now and into the future. And we believe those kids have should have the ability and the option to attend a public pre-K here in the Commonwealth and become kindergarten ready.
I just want to make sure you're wanting to take money from the permanent pension fund to fund this.
Sports wagering dollars that are in an account that
That
has
are supposed to go to the pensions, and that's the way it was pitched, that's the way it was sold, that's the way it's written in the bill. Even though the money's sitting in a fund that is to be deposited, I just want to make sure we're wanting to take it from the permanent pension fund to fund this.
So the revenues are from sports wagering. They sit in an account. It's called the Permanent Pension Fund. It could be called anything. Those funds are not allocated towards pensions or any other liability or any other purpose at this point. So we think that the public pre-K program should be expanded to help more working families here in the Commonwealth. We think that expanding it to the 9,600 additional kids that we've requested the budget allocation for would change the lives of those kids and those families now and into the future in terms of better test scores, better life outcomes. We've seen kids that attend preschool are less likely to be incarcerated. They're more likely to have health insurance. They're more likely to be employed, less likely to have disciplinary issues. And so the benefits of having early childhood education are massive. And we certainly think that this is a valuable program that should be expanded.
And I could say the same thing about having a pension. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. I'm a little bit concerned, and Representative Bojanowski, I have not forgotten you. I want you to know that. I'm a little bit concerned about our private daycares because these are businesses, they're small businesses, and I'm concerned about them. Do you have any concerns?
So we have met with child care providers. We tried to meet with essentially anybody who could be impacted by expanding preschool access. So we met with superintendents, we met with school board members, we met with child care providers, we met with legislators. I think we're over 90 members of the legislature at this point because we wanted to get insights on budget. But with respect to child care, we wanted to know, okay, how does this impact child care providers? So for folks who know or don't know, child care providers, because of the number of seats and the classroom ratios that they have by regulation, they generally speaking make their money on providing for the 4-year-old population. They serve about 10,000, anywhere between 9 and 10,000 4-year-olds in private pay families, and then they have about 7 to 10,000 families that are C-cap families, so families that get child care subsidies. Okay, so those families, number one, it doesn't matter whether you have CCAP available to you or ECAP or what have you, if you live in a community that has no access to childcare. And I pointed out the Child Care Aware report that shows counties like Robertson County, they have over 100 kids age 0 to 5. It's the smallest county. Over 100 kids age 0 to 5, they have 0 seats available. 0 childcare seats. So we can give somebody a childcare subsidy all day long in that county. It doesn't matter because there's nowhere that they can actually use it. So in many places in Kentucky, and I want to get to your question, in many places in Kentucky, yes. In
Now?
many places in Kentucky, there is no access to childcare, period. So expanding preschool access is not going to impact what doesn't already exist. Second piece is in those areas in the Commonwealth, and truly in every single district, we have written into this bill where childcare providers are actually encouraged to provide these services. So allowing them to partner with school districts to provide these services. So not only does it not hurt them, because families between 160% and 250% of the federal poverty line, they can't afford to send their kids to a child care facility that costs $10,000 a year, if they can even find one. They can't. So this is a program, our pre-K expansion program is designed to help those families that can't find or can't afford childcare. And so that's not going to impact childcare providers in a negative way. And secondly, by allowing private childcare providers to actually provide these services in partnership with school districts, we're actually helping them. And that's the dual sort of concerns that we heard from childcare providers. Don't hurt our bottom line, but also we'd love to be a part of this. We've tried to address that in those two ways.
Okay. That's different than what I've heard. My child care providers are extremely concerned about this, and because the regulations are different, they don't match up with what we've got there. I mean, there's a whole spaghetti bowl that you just would have to start teasing out for that. Representative Bojanowski?
Yes, thank you. So anytime we talk pre-K, it reminds me of what I've read from James Heckman, the Nobel Prize-winning economist, saying that high-quality birth to 5 early childhood education programs will provide a 13% return. So, from an economic perspective, every dollar we invest in early childhood is going to pay off. My question is kind of on this public-private partnership, and then sort of following along with Rep. Bray stated, kids who are in early childhood, how would the programs, how would it operationalize, right? So right now, of course, we've had a lot of presentations from child care concerns, the chamber, et cetera.
Sure.
And preschool is maybe 3 hours a day.
Sure.
Right, in a public preschool. So if it's in the child care centers, that would definitely help the working families better. But I'm just trying to understand how that would work, how they would be approved to be getting the public dollars. And then my final question would be, would that include special education students?
Yes. So a couple questions in there. I'm going to try to address them all. First things first. So public pre-K in Kentucky. It's good to see you, Representative Bowling. Public pre-K in Kentucky is delivered in a number of ways in terms of how many hours in the day. So there's a half-day option. There's an option that's approved by. So if you come up with your own plan as a district, that is approved by the commissioner. In some cases, school districts are providing double sessions. So essentially full day pre-K in their district. About 40% of the districts actually provide full day pre-K in their district. Others do a morning or an afternoon. In many cases, school districts, so for example, Clark County, who has an early childhood education center, and I highly encourage folks to talk to their superintendent because he's really doing an incredible job on early childhood education. They provide the half-day pre-K during the morning, and in the afternoon, they actually invite private child care providers to provide the child care in the afternoon, so there's no transportation required. So that's part of that. There's other ways to provide this as well, and I think your question was how the partnerships actually work. So, for example, if you're in Shelby County or Jefferson County or Fayette County, a larger suburban county that might have a number of child care providers, child care providers would volunteer, say, hey, we would like to actually provide these services. They enter into a contract with the school district, and the funds would flow to the child care provider. They need to meet the regulatory requirements that the school district would otherwise have to meet. And the other piece to this, and this is why we ask for a data system, is because the data is so important, and we want the private child care providers to actually be able to enter that data correctly. So longitudinally, we can track the success of the kids that go through this program. So, for example, let's say that we have, I don't know, 5,000 kids that decide to attend our expansion program, and 1,000 of them are actually served in a child care setting, not private or nonprofit child care setting, a YMCA or what have you. Being able to track and see what those outcomes look like longitudinally allows folks here and at KDE and other places to make the policy tweaks necessary to ensure that the program continues to deliver educational results for these children now and well into the future. So that's how that would shake out. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, if I could do a brief follow-up.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the data system, where is that funded? Is that in the 10 million startup?
That's correct. That's correct. And we base that on what Georgia's data system looked like and the information that they're able to collect. Now, we've talked to KDE about what that looks like in terms of implementation. It may be significantly less than the 10 million. It just depends on what Infinite Campus is able to do, and so there's going to have to be some more conversations there. But what we're looking for is longitudinal data to be able to track where kids are in the setting, so we can actually see what the outcomes are from the different early childhood education settings that we have in Kentucky, stacked up next to each other now and again into the future, and then also tracking the success of the students. So our kids that are in a public pre-K, how are they doing on their third grade assessments? How are they doing on their eighth grade assessments? What does their high school graduation rate look like versus kids that are in no formal setting at all? And really being able to track the policy, right? Because we need to be able to understand what kind of outcomes we're actually getting from the policies that we're putting in place.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions, I need to approve the minutes. Got a motion and a second? All in favor? Aye. Great. A minute's approved. Thank you very much. We will communicate our next meeting, and once